Welcome. My name is Penelope Chatterton. Welcome to Awaken the Dream, my friends. It's been a year this week, and I'm happy to be back and grateful to Tim Riley here at the public access station for doing all the protocols and getting me in and out the proper way. And today, I'm really proud to present what Acropolis Books has moved its website to, which is joelgoldsmithbooks.com. And that will be brought up underneath so that you can check on where you can find absolutely anything and everything of Joel Goldsmith. Acropolis Books has inherited, and they host everything that he has ever done with such, they're so proud, and they're happy I'm here today to talk about the Government of Eden. It's very timely. This particular book, according to Acropolis, is a compilation of his very, very best works. Absolutely, if you read The Government of Eden, you will absolutely be free and understand totally the infinite way. And that's what is exciting for me, because with all the books I've studied and read, I keep thinking, oh my gosh, this one is genius. This is just genius. So I'm grateful to be here to explore it, because it talks about politics of all things. So we go to the first chapter of Genesis. We go to the Bible and we notice that in that first chapter, everything's perfect. There's no disease, no sin. We're in the Garden of Eden. We're happy, we're whole, we're complete, and we're at peace. What more could we ask for? Until we go to the second chapter of Genesis. Then we find mortal man, who is filled with sin and death and fear and one-upping and going after people and greed, all those lovely things. So we have those two contrasts. And what's so interesting is that Joel has taken these two chapters and he's helped us to see what the Garden of Eden really is all about. So the Garden of Eden, where we started, where we had no beginning, we didn't get born, we're not going to die, we're whole and we're complete, and we're an invisible energy. The invisible energy of this whole environment, planet, is God's, and it's perfect. And it's been around forever. We've been around for centuries. And Joel is saying because of that, we have cut into a lot of the worst evils in the world. We are returning to a complete brotherhood of man, the sonship. And it is possible. And what's so exciting about the Government of Eden, it tells us why we can get there and what we have to do. Okay, who of us love to meditate? It's very interesting to see it in print that Joel says a lot of folks don't care for that, or don't do it, or they're not still enough, because think about being born into this dimension of all this activity, all this mortal activity of sin and fear and disease. We've just moved right into it, so we have to figure out how to deal with it. It's very scary. But because we're born into it, we're used to it. You know, this is home. This is the way we function. We're on the earth plane. This is par for the course for everyone. But time and time again, we find that that's not the most fun we have in life, is fearing and greed and one-upping and not loving our neighbor as ourselves. Now, Joel makes a wonderful point about even 1,500 years before Christ, love thy neighbor as thyself. It's been with us forever. It's been with us forever. Mystical ways of life have been with us forever. And the whole point of the infinite way is, how do we get to loving our neighbor as ourselves? Joel very, very humbly says, bit by bit, we cut into the darkness. He didn't say it was easy. The principle is amazingly easy. To get there takes sacrifice, endurance, and you have to just hang in there and show up. So show up we must, and show up we start our day in meditation. As Joel says, we feel spirit right down to our toes. And what could be nicer than that? And sometimes when you wake up, you have to really think about, okay, I'm not going to budge until I set up my day and walk on water and feel spirit and guidance with me every moment of this 24 hours, not just now. As a matter of fact, Joel makes it very clear, the infinite way is a lifestyle. And it's something you do constantly, not only 24 hours a day, but every single day of your life. You think about your guidance. You think about the presence within you, because that's who you really are. And it can be done, and you will do it, because you'll feel it. Sometimes we use affirmations to help us get into the deeper layers, but Joel says don't think those affirmations are all there is, or that we just stop there. What we have to do is get into our heart. And sharing from the heart, I find the most powerful thing that I can do. Be vulnerable within. Your heart is heard. So here we have this beautiful, beautiful world where people have preferences. Some people, Joel says, loves oceans, some love mountains, some hate animals, some love animals. And you know, what's interesting about preferences is it really doesn't matter. Everything is perfect. So it's interesting to sort of think about the fact that we all sort of lean toward things, but what we have to do is become immune to our feelings of, well, this is better than this, or that's better than the other thing. And we can only become immune as we practice our vision from the inside out. The government of Eden, the infinite way, takes us to spiritual freedom, which takes us from the inside out. We create from the inside out. We receive from the inside, and it manifests. So, sounds simple, doesn't it? The concepts are, but the work is not that simple. And we have to keep purifying ourselves. Joel uses that word. We have to sit down and purify our judgments. We are not to judge anything as good and evil, which takes us to Adam and Eve. Joel is interesting about Adam and Eve. They took off from the garden because they had a knowledge of something else other than the perfection that they were. They saw good and evil. We are born like, we are Adam and Eve. We are born into this dimension of seeing good and evil. Now, to think that we have to negate that to bring the light into that darkness, as you can see, requires purification of our souls. Our souls are perfect. They are within us. They have everything, and if we can let go of our judgments, the soul can speak. And guess why? God is knocking on everyone's door. Everyone. So the worst person you know, I often say, is God, him or herself. We are all gods. We're individual expressions of God. God created this universe with an invisible world of perfection. It's invisible. So within us all is this divine perfection and love and peace, and we can have it 24 hours a day if we go to work. So, go to work we must. And you know, if you're diligent, if you are the type of person that likes to do things well, or that you get hooked on the infinite way, like I did. When I read that first book, I don't know if it was 10 years ago, it was like everything else I'd ever done was now, I found my mentor, I found my way, because it fit me like a glove. Everything I'd ever experienced from being a teenager on, loving mysticism, Meister Eckhart, having, I don't know, hundreds of people on my television show that brought all of their ways to get to God, which were wonderful. And then I read Joel, and that was it. It was time for me to show up and talk about this man, whose birthday was March 10th. So happy birthday, Joel. He may not appreciate that, but hope he's listening. Anyway, he is an amazing man who just never, ever, ever let up. So we've talked about preferences, we've talked about vision. How do we do that? We meditate, we become still. We think about what we're looking at. We change our vision, we shift into seeing someone whole and complete. Now you know that can be a challenge, but with practice, Joel cannot say enough about practice, practice, practice. You cannot practice enough. From the minute you open your eyes, when you wake up in the middle of the night, practice. Practice your vision. See the Son of God in everyone, because it is there. Everyone is coming to their full sonship. As he says, after centuries of showing up over and over again, We brought a lot of darkness to light. We have brought light to this universe. And I am noticing, politically, he's interesting. This is what you do when you go to the polls. You don't think about what your grandmother thought you should vote for, what party you should vote for, who should be your governor, your president, your senator. You take the I am, to the polls. That's all you need to do. Look for love. Who is expressing love? Who cares for one another? Who is not pitting people against each other? And you will have the right person to vote for. And I kind of think that's very timely and quite wonderful, because we all have habits. We all have backgrounds that sort of feed us where we should be and what we should do and where we should live and what we should like, when in fact, to find, this is interesting too, because I took my name Chatterton back. I can't remember how many years ago, and at the time it didn't sort of dawn on me why, except I loved the fact my father and Christian Scientist practitioners in the 1800s were spiritual people and pretty out there. I can remember giving my dad a hard time because his platitudes sometimes weren't practical, and yet they were the truth for him, like his parents. And they lived by it, they died by it, and I admire that. And I learned a lot about that. So my name Chatterton goes back to spiritual folks who went out on a limb to dare to look at life differently. So there we are. We're looking at life differently in the infinite way, which, by the way, Joel Goldsmith was a Christian Science practitioner, I think for 30 years, and he did miraculous healings. And then he saw politics kind of moving into the organized religion. And as his mother said, Joel, you're here to find God, of which he never let go of that. And then he realized he kept getting messages from God about the infinite way. And then the books just poured through him, the lectures poured through him. He opened up to receiving the still small voice. That moved mountains for him, my friends. He sat often, and he had his frustrations. I mean, and he talks about that. He had his addictions, we all do. But he was humble, and addictions left him as he began to think purely about what he was seeing. He was dismissing sin. He was claiming his own perfection, the love in his own heart. He enjoyed his students so much, and they had so much love for each other. And that was his great, great blessings. And he traveled. My goodness, when I think of how little I've traveled compared to his Hawaii, to his New York, to his all over the world, he was welcomed with his lectures. And people opened up to Joel Goldsmith, who could understand his consciousness. And when I speak, a lot of my friends, I have to be careful, because even Joel says we can be kind of peculiar, we can act funny, or we say things that people think, yeah, right. So I'm sure it's happened to many of you who are infinite way folks. So Joel recommends you take it easy on who you talk to. We talk about being sacred and private. What does that mean? Give lip service. Now, that makes me laugh, because sometimes that's hard to give lip service to something, but if you need to, just to save face or to keep somebody happy, within you is another truth going on. They can go on at the same time. You are sacred, you are private, and you are knowing the truth in your heart, no matter what lip service you're giving. That kind of protects you as well. And praying for your enemies, he cannot say enough how it has to be 70 times 7. Praying for enemies more than anyone is our most important assignment. We all have them. Yes, we all have them. And we can redeem them within our hearts. We can actually have different circumstances happen to us from perceptions of purity, of seeing the Son of God. People act differently toward you when you give them that. Some will even ask you what you got. What's your secret? They respond to your consciousness. Those are the folks that you should talk to and who want to be with you. So we don't blab, and we don't go to a football game and sit in the bleachers and scream about what we know. We're sacred and we're private. And the strength and the energy that gives us, just because when you're sacred and you're private, you're really connected to your source. And when you see someone else, you know they're connected to their source. Whether they know it or not, we know it. So yes, we're all one sonship, and we will all endure forever. We were never born, we will never die, and when we leave this plane, our I will still be there. And I don't know about you folks, I'm getting older and I'm sort of laughing at myself that my soul seems to still be a kid. So I'm sort of expecting that when I transition, that little kid is going with me. Because that passion that we have. Jesus went into that wilderness, my friends. He studied, he went to India, he sat with prophets and masters, and he worked on trying to figure out, he knew he was sent from God, he knew he was an example of love, but he did study and work at it so that when his time came to share, he was ready. And Buddha, for 21 years, left his family to go and search for why are people suffering? Why is there sin and disease and all of that? 21 years he wandered and sat at the seat of seers and prophets and teachers. And he got really discouraged until, I guess the story is the Bodhi tree. He sat under it and all of a sudden God said, "You're looking at illusions. Man made up all of this stuff by himself. You're looking at sin and disease and death and all of that because that's what men do. So it's an illusion. It's a fear. It's not real." So Buddha had his lesson. And you know, we've had many prophets and seers and gurus spiritually, but I love the fact that Joel can say, if you're a nobody, so what? You're very powerful. You can change a whole community and you can change a whole village. You're still adding light. You're still negating the darkness bit by bit. So if you're a nobody, I think that's great, because you really are somebody. You can change the world. You can lift consciousness, because we are negating the dark, slowly but surely. We will all be back in the Garden of Eden. Now, the garden is not a real garden. The Garden of Eden is a domain. It's a spiritual domain. And what could be nicer than knowing that we have that to go to? It's within our hearts. We have love within us. That's all we've got. But it does mean we have to cut through appearances. That takes practice, again. We wake up, we set the scene for how do we cut through this day? How are we going to walk on water, feel divine, feel at peace? Yeah, the government of Eden and the infinite way can show us principles to live in peace. It's all there, my friends. Anything and everything you'd ever want to know is there. I guarantee it. It's lifted my soul. So like a nobody, we share what we have. Now, how do we have this inner peace? We have to give our love away. We're all individual expressions of God, and we all have a gift to give away. You have one, whether you know it or not, it's there, and you probably, a lot of you do know you have it. I do this because I'm feeding my soul. My words come back to nourish me, and I hope connect with others. But that's what we need to do. We need to share this love, to have it. It returns to the sender, my friends. How simple that sounds, but what we preach is what we are. And so I'm grateful. I'm grateful, and after a year, I was really nervous coming because I thought, am I going to remember how to do this? It was scary. But I'm here, and I'm doing my best, and it's going to have to be good enough for me because I showed up. And what we have to do is show up for ourselves. Pray about it. Ask God. He's waiting for you to talk to him, you know. He's knocking on your door. Ask him, what's my talent? Where do I go with this? How can I serve? How can I change consciousness and lift it into the light? Where are my skills? What's my destiny about? Do I have a mission? Well, a lot of us have been blessed with spiritual backgrounds that have been rocky, between the Christian Science in my house and the Methodism, we had quite a little interesting display of how to and how not to. And I was blessed in many ways just being exposed to religious fervor, to Mary Baker Eddy, to spiritual healing. It's nice, too, to feel protected and to say every day, I am whole, complete, and perfect. Yeah, set the scene for your health. Why not? So, my friends, when you go to that polling station, remember to take the I with you. Vote from your heart. Let your soul hear what people have in mind for our government. Hear it. See where they're coming from. Do they want to pull us together? Do they want to separate us? Are they greedy? Are they generous? Look for the qualities of the sonship, because love has everything to do with sharing, taking care of one another. Yes, think of all the folks you can just take care of. That is giving. That may be the best destiny in the world, is that you help somebody, you take care of someone. That's huge. You're bringing light to someone. Maybe you have a healing consciousness. We can all have that if we want it. So, my friends, the Garden of Eden is not a garden, it's a domain. It's an invisible energy. This whole universe is invisible, and it's perfect. And what I love about it is we're all connected to each other. Yeah, think about that. Our sources are the same, so we're all in the same source. So what you see in another, be careful about your judgments, because that will come back to the sender. You don't want that feeling to come back on you like, oh, why did I say that? Or that didn't feel good. Because it doesn't feel good if you're judging someone and being hard on anyone. Not if you want love in your life. Not if you want to attract the very finest for yourself. Not if you want to attract an assignment. A way to live in peace is huge. We came into, like, we are Adam and Eve, we came in to absorb all of this mass hysteria. That's what Joel calls us. We have mass hysteria going on all the time. So to lift that is a pretty big load, to say the least. So cutting into it is good. And he said at the end of this century, we could be home. I thought that was incredibly encouraging, because we've been here for centuries. We could be home. We could be light workers. We can take care of one another, friends. We are on our way. So the sonship. Remember the sonship, the brotherhood of man. Let us love one another. As Joel says, 1500 BC, people knew about that. That I am, that is, knows that. That's been from forever. No beginning, it's just forever we have had everything that we need within us. And it will continue. And chapters happen in our life. I have noticed, gee, I've been a dancer, I've been a special needs teacher, I've been a singer, I've done all kinds of stuff. But one thing can lead to another. And that's a beautiful part about life. When you're ready for the next chapter, you do it. Something will come to you because we're creative. So there's another thought. We are very creative. Watch what things come to you. No, those hunches, those ideas, guess where they came from? Understand God is talking to you. Yeah, you're creative, so you're receiving information on your next step. Listen carefully, but if you don't sit down and listen and be still and meditate, which, as Joel says, not many want to do, it doesn't seem to be the way we started out. I didn't know about it when I was a kid. But I've had some losses in my life that really were traumatic, that opened me up to really needing to be inner. And there are gifts in that. Yeah, it's very healing to be inner, to ask for solace, to ask for comfort. And we have a place to go, friends. So I'm winding down, but I want you to know that your life is perfect. You're on a journey. You're here to do something special. And you've been here before. And you'll be here again, possibly. Who knows? fun to think about that for me at this particular stage in my life. What's next? It's fun watching children. It's fun watching your grandkids. I have a passion for pets, I confess. Always did, always will, but I have to also love a lion. I have to also, Joel talks about, you know, some critters out in the forest might scare you, but we have to love every single critter. We have to love our mountains. We have to love our oceans. We don't have to have a preference. This world, this whole universe is perfect, and wherever you end up, appreciate what someone else has. It's just as good as what you have. Everybody has what they want and need, and they're guided to where they need to go. So my friends, I hope I've done justice to the government of Eden. I feel a little rusty, but I cannot tell you. Go to joelgoldsmithbooks.com. There's customer service. Anything and everything you need to know is on that website. So I encourage you, if you want books, if you want to know what's going on, if you want letters, they have all kinds of things that you can sign up for or you can order. But they are the host of all of Joel's work, so that's the place one needs to go. And on that note, my friends, I just want to thank you for joining me and helping me get through after a whole year, coming back and sitting here, nervous, but doing my best. And I'm hoping you got a lot out of what I had to say today, because I did. Thanks again.